Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, and I'm excited to have our guest today. They are the founder of Red Rat Media and SoftwareMarketingPros.com, as well as a real estate investor. They have over 15 years of experience working with businesses in tech, SaaS, and e-commerce. They've helped SMBs, which is small to medium-sized businesses, and Fortune 500 companies grow their revenue with digital marketing, advertising, and consulting. Some of his clients include Under Armour, Disney, Toyota, Yeti, and many more. Our guest is also the host of the Rich Life podcast, which is for busy people, entrepreneurs, or anyone looking for personal growth in the form of short 15 to 20-minute episodes. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest, Rich Tavetian. Rich?
What's up, man?
I am excited to have you on.
Dude, I love that intro, by the way.
You're very welcome.
But it is Tavetian. I'm gonna have
Tavetian. I knew I messed up. I was like, did I get it? No, I didn't say Tavetian.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, it's sort of like I always tell people two things. It's like a TV hitting your shin or Venetian. Usually the TV hitting your shin typically sticks, right? Because you're just like, you visualize that like, oh, I definitely don't want a TV hit my shin.
Oh, yeah, that's genius. Also, great timing with me drinking as you said it and nearly spit out my water here all over the camera.
The moments we make together, Phil. I'm just so grateful.
So thank you very much for coming on. I'm looking forward to learning about you, sharing your story with my audience. As you said, I gave you a nice little intro, but that's all my words. I want to hear from you. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, the intro sounds like I'm important, so that I love that. And I should keep you around more, Phil. I'm just kidding. But my name is Rich Tavetian. I'm a little background on me. So I'm from originally Queens, New York, but I don't have a funny accent like most New Yorkers do. And the reason is because I grew up in the mountains, and we were talking earlier about, I'm from upstate New York and it's basically Canada and it's freezing cold up there. And somehow I wound up in Austin, Texas, and that's a much longer story, but I'm glad to talk more about that at some other point, maybe on another podcast. I am the founder of Red Rat Media. We are a full service ad agency, digital marketing agency that really helps grow small to medium businesses, primarily with digital. Not a big fan of like traditional, print marketing, all that stuff. I love digital. I've pretty much loved computers and technology and, video games pretty much most of my life. Growing up, I was pretty much obsessed with like PlayStation and Xbox and, playing like StarCraft, not to get too nerdy, but I used to love like StarCraft and video games like that were kind of like, real-time strategy, kind of like building a Sim City sort of thing. Naturally, I kind of went into the computer science field with my education in college and whatnot. But I realized like soon thereafter that I just sucked at coding, like just horrible, like just the worst coder of all time, and I wasn't good at it. So, having that realization early on in my career, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with my life? I just spent, 4 years in college and whatnot, and sort of transitioned over into the digital marketing space, which is really where I love, where my love is. And really at the end of the day, content creation and creating content, telling other people's stories. So mostly self-taught, in the digital marketing space. I really started back in the early 2000s. If you want to really go that far back, I'm, just to give some context, I'm in my mid 30s. So I've been around for a little while, as you can tell from, what you said with my resume and helping a lot of Fortune 500s as well. Technically started Red Rat Media back in 2012 because there was really a need from, business owners and people that were reaching out to me, that were interested in my services. And, kind of going a little bit backwards, I was working, the W-2 jobs and, doing all that stuff. And unfortunately, I got laid off from a software company that I was working at. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do besides collect unemployment? What I probably should do is help, people that need help. And naturally, I kind of gravitated towards like websites and, technology like that. And really, I saw a gap, right? And it was really, in 2012, I don't know if you remember, Phil, but it was really when, social media was like cool, right? Like it
Mhm.
sort of like, there was no Gary V really back then. Like there wasn't any like, gurus or anything like that. It was just like, get me on social media. I don't know what this thing is. Help me out. And that's kind of like how I started. So it sort of transitioned more into like social media. I was training a lot of, SMBs and small business owners, brick and mortars on these things. And it, sort of naturally turned into like, hey, help me with my website, help me with SEO. And at the time, SEO was pretty easy, right? It wasn't as challenging. You could just put up a website, throw up some meta tags, and you're good to go, and people can find you. Nowadays, it's a lot more challenging, which is why my team does this work, right? So yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about me. Glad to talk more and any
Oh,
questions that you have. I can talk forever, so.
as a fellow podcaster, I know we can talk forever. So I'm glad you're doing the talking and not me. Um, so the real reason, like, you got into this entrepreneurial world is because you got laid off from the tech company.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of a crazy story, but I was really into obviously technology, but I got the phone call, or I was about to buy a house because I was so interested in real estate too. I was listening to a lot of podcasts on real estate, and I was like, oh, this thing called real estate is pretty interesting. Let me figure out like how to like quote unquote, work for myself and be an entrepreneur for myself. And it just naturally, yeah, I kind of went into like not only the digital marketing space, but also the real estate space, which are two totally different fields, right? Like two totally different industries. And so I thought, like, if I buy a property, in my hometown, upstate New York, then I could just rent out the rooms and make some extra income that way, and then keep buying more and more over time. And so I was literally, Phil, like about to close on a property in upstate New York. And I get a phone, and I was so excited. I told my boss, I emailed him like, hey man, like I'm about to close on my first house. Like it's gonna be amazing. He calls me right away from that email and he's like, hey Rich, just so you know, and I was at the software company at the time, just so you know, I was, we're basically 2 weeks away from shutting down. And I wanted to tell you this just so that you don't buy this property and go into debt on this mortgage, that we are laying off the whole company, including myself. So he had to lay off his whole team and himself. Uh, and he was like, I needed to let you know ahead of time so that you don't get screwed. Right. And by the way, can I curse? Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I
Yeah.
want to make sure. I always try to ask. So he calls me that, and I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I was like, I was like completely, like dumbfounded. It was the first
Mhm.
time I ever been, laid off. I lost a job, and I'm like, "What the fuck do I do? This is bullshit. Like, I don't know what to do from here. I'm about to buy a property. I had to call my real estate agent and tell her like, "Hey, I have to back out of this deal. This isn't going to work out." So anyway, I wound up just kind of getting out of that deal, and then I think what did you ask me? You're asking me about. Um, Go back to the question again. Sorry.
I was like, the reason you started in the
Oh yeah.
entrepreneurial world was because you got laid off.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, well, what skills do I have from my experience that I could help other people with? And I just leaned into, the digital marketing space. And so I got laid off and I'm like, I'm so screwed. What do I do? Literally back in the day when Craigslist was a thing, I posted on Craigslist to see if anybody needed help with websites and social media. And that was where I got my first client. And it was a guy that needed help with his website. He didn't understand social media. He didn't understand SEO. And I was basically just training him and showing him, here's how you set up your meta tags. Here's how you need to optimize for Google. Here's what Google's looking for. Here's a sitemap. Right? Here's all these like technical terms that most people still don't understand to this day. And from that day forward, man, can you hear me okay? I'm
Yeah,
getting
I can hear you great.
some feedback. From that day forward, I was like, I'm never working for anybody else again. Like I'm just going, because I literally had zero control over my income.
Mhm.
And so by providing the skills that I had and then building a team that was really smart around that stuff, I'm now able to not have to work for anybody else. Right. And that's what it is. It's sort of like who, not how. In the beginning stages, entrepreneurial journey, it's like, it's all me. Kind of like the traditional, I do everything. I'm not the visionary. If you're familiar with EOS, I'm not the visionary or I'm the visionary and the integrator and the salesperson and this and that and all this stuff, right? Together. And eventually you realize like, wait, there are certain things that I don't like to do. And then there are certain things that I'm actually really good at that I should probably double down on and then hire somebody else to do the other stuff. In my case, the operations work, with the team.
Yeah, no, operations
so that's
is
the short version.
It's no, I love it because it's interesting because you took this moment in your life where you're like what's going to be the highest start of the high for you, and then you get the greatest call of your life. I'm probably over exaggerating here, but
absolutely
saying, yeah, hey, don't do this because that's not the smartest thing to do because you're fired pretty much. Everybody is, and then you have to restart your life over again. And I love how you just went to Craigslist. Like, no, you didn't try Facebook. You didn't go into any of these things. You're like, oh, Craigslist, it's free. I'll do that. And It paid off, right? It got you your first client, which then gave you the idea like, screw being a W-2, screw being an employee. I'm going to be the boss. Obviously, it came with some pitfalls and some stressful moments. Is there a moment that you had when you were starting? Because I want to talk to this because everybody who starts goes through like some painful moments. Was there a moment where you actually decided you were on the cusp of going, yeah, entrepreneurialism is great, being my own boss is great, but man, I want to go back to being an employee for that safety?
100%. I mean, naturally you think like, you get these great benefits and you have like literally just somebody paying you right every single 2 weeks or every week or every month. And actually it's sort of crippling. Like they call it like the golden handcuffs, right? Because you get used to like, oh, I just show up, do my work, and then I get money from somebody else. Right. And I wasn't ready, back in 2012, I really wasn't ready. I didn't expect to have to do sales, to have to do the outreach, to have to do the volume, that I need to do in order to get out there. Right. And so doing things like this and being on podcasts and getting the name out and getting people to know who you are and build trust with your audience, I think is really important. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of my tangent there.
No, it does, because you did confirm that you did have those moments of self-doubt. Like,
yeah,
can I do this? Yeah,
I still do. And it really, I think the biggest pillar for me is self-development, right? When it comes to entrepreneurial, because I think if you're just, and this is just popping in my head now, but I think if you're just focused on like, I want to be an entrepreneur and work for myself, you don't realize like there's like this kind of higher level mindset and self-development that has to be there to be really the foundation before you go into this world. Because you're going to have clients that don't want to work with you. You're going to have complaints. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have, you're going to have to go through the shit, right? To really see results. And some days are better than others, right? But what I found was if I systematize my day and systematize my team and create standard operating procedures and figure out like what's the best framework that works for me, getting up at a certain time and getting ready to do outreach and, talking to the team on a regular basis, having that structure, I think is important. And the hardest part for me, because I'm a creative, is that structure is not my favorite thing, right? But we have to, right? We have to have some form of a routine. And I don't know if you ever read Atomic Habits, but it's the greatest book of all time, in my opinion, in terms of building habits and like systematizing your life and thinking about, your identity first, right? Before you start building your habits. So in other words, for the listeners, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to like think like an entrepreneur, right? And if you don't know what that is, you have to figure it out, right? And learn. And so, Atomic Habits, Think and Grow Rich. I listen to so much Jim Rohn. I listen to so much Earl Schoaf. I listen to so much Earl Nightingale, like Tony Robbins, like all that stuff people think is like, woo-woo or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to have that foundation because you're going to get screwed, right? You're going to have, and going back to real estate for a second, you're going to have tenants that decide to just leave and not pay you rent or destroy the place, right? Or you're going to have clients that, complain, or you're going to have clients that love you too, right? And hopefully you have more of those raving fans clients than you have, challenging clients. But now I'm at the point in, with the business where it's like, I get to pick and choose who I want to work with. Right. And in the beginning you don't, because you're kind of doing like free work, in the early stages, and, trying to build those testimonials and those reviews. So anyway.
No, I love it, because it is true. Like, entrepreneurial is probably the only industry that forces you, like, if you don't have your mental game up, like if you aren't having the open mindset, if you're not ready for the battles that are coming, like, I feel being an entrepreneur, and I'm still early in my entrepreneurial journey. Like, I'm a veteran of the podcast game, but making a living as my own boss, as my own employee, as my own person, I'm still young. I'm like 3 years into this game, and the mud, the stink, the shit that you have to wad through, if you, like you said, if you don't develop your personal mindset and that fortitude, I feel like, I'm a movie lover, so like the never ending story where Treyu's pulling the horse out, like, it's like, if you're not, you're gonna get stuck like the horse if you don't got that positive mindset by the nothing, and it's just like, it is hard sometimes. Like, some days you wake up and you're like, I just want someone to tell me what I need to do. I don't want to figure this out. And then other days you're like, all right, I got to figure out 25,000 things, and you disappear into your work. And I love that you mentioned that, like, you it's that personal development. Atomic Habits is such a great book. I have it on audio and in physical, because it's just, every once in a while you just need to pick it up and read it and be like, oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, and especially in terms of your podcast name, invest in yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it all starts there with that foundation. And another book for your reader, or for your listeners, is Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. So that's a really good way to kind of structure your day, with meditation and journaling, and kind of like having the downtime of thinking. Because I think nowadays, with all these, like, and I'm in the digital space, right? So I get this, and software, I get that. We have so many distractions, right? I mean, it's so easy to pick up TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever platforms and just doom scroll for hours. And so I think of it in two ways. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, invest in yourself by limiting yourself to those things, and don't be a consumer, be a creator, right? Be a media company. Even if you're an HVAC technician, or even if you're, whatever business or brand you're going to start, be a media company and be a creator to provide value to other people, like you're doing with this podcast. And the more value I think you provide and give to the world, the more it comes back to you, right, at the end of the day. So
I love that. It's so true. It's
just be a good person.
I have a sticker on my back, on my laptop, that says, don't be a dick, right? Like, that's what it is. Just be a good human, help people out, and things are going to come back tenfold to you in ways you never even thought of. I want to know if you have a memory, before we shift to you teaching us some stuff. I want to know if you have a memory from your 15 plus years of being an entrepreneur, kicking ass and taking names, if you will, of something that cements, like we talked about, like, some days you get your brain just hits you with the negativity, but is there like a either a memory you have that you were able to achieve something, or you got something for a client that was like, you saw their joy in it, like they reached their goal, that just keeps the flame lit for entrepreneurialism in your world?
Yeah, I mean, I think about what I do as not really digital marketing, and this is going to sound weird, but I think of it like just helping people solve problems, right? Because the reason why we're in business is because we're solving problems for people, and typically it turns into brand awareness. It turns into, I don't have enough traffic, I don't have enough sales, I don't have enough leads, I don't have enough insert problem here, right? And it just happens that our skills and my team skills happen to fill that gap. But to answer your question, the memory that comes to mind first when you were saying that, was the first time I ever got paid for my service. And I was just like dumbfounded. I'm like, somebody's paying me for this. And, and that was like, when I was still laid off and collecting unemployment and whatnot. And I'm like, wait, somebody just sent me money. And this is the days before Venmo and Cash App and like PayPal and like, oh, well, PayPal was there, but not to the same extent. And the memory that popped in my head, I was like, holy crap. If somebody's willing to pay me for this service, that means that I am valuable to this person, right? May not be valuable to every single person in the world, but in this moment, they decided I'm going to give this person money for this service because they need help, because I need help with social media or SEO or pay-per-click, whatever it is, right? So that was a big moment for me. And as soon as it hit my, kind of hit my bank account, I'm a very money driven guy, right? Who doesn't love money? And I love it. But when I saw that hit my bank account, I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to help people solve their problems. And over time, the problem, is getting harder, right? The challenges of getting traffic to the site, or, conversion rate optimization, or running ads properly for Google or for Meta or for whatever platforms that are out there. The fundamentals don't change. At the end of the day, people always need more business. They always need more traffic. They always need more leads coming in. The mediums change, right? And, I could probably talk to you for hours just about Craigslist prospecting back in 2012, right? And what worked and what didn't work. But guess what? It doesn't work like that today anymore. So if you do try to go on Craigslist, you might find a few, some clients through there, but one of probably the best thing, I don't know if you saw the book launch for Alex Hormozi, that was freaking fire, man. And that's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about that in terms of like outreach and prospecting. So,
well, that's a great moment to transition, because I was going to ask for you, like, the next question was a piece of advice that you have. So instead of asking for a piece of advice, let's talk about Alex Hormozi, because he just did his 100 million leads launch, which I think it was just fantastic in execution. Like, obviously, I'm not at Alex Hormozi's level. I don't know if you are either, Rich.
Nope.
I don't
working on it.
Right. Yeah. And the vision that he has, like, let's talk about it. I want to get your opinion on it, because I have my opinions on it. But what did you take away from Alex, and what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So what I think I like the way he simplifies things, and I resonate with that a lot, because I'm just a regular guy. Like, I'm not super smart. Like, I know enough to get by. And that's why I have a really smart team to help. Right. I'm really good at visionary, bigger picture, strategic goals, and then kind of getting the team excited about like heading towards that. But anyway, so in the beginning stages of building a business, right, you have to do things, either it's basically time or money, right? So you either have, and this isn't from Hormozi, but this is my version of what he got wrong, actually. So if you want some more info,
please, yes, I love this.
So he talks about there's 8 ways to get customers online nowadays, and one of which is cold outreach, another one is warm outreach, another one is through paid ads, and another one is through content, right? So those are the 4 that you can do yourself. And then the other 4 are through referrals, affiliates, employees, and I forget what the last one is, but it's basically somebody else gets you clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the beginning stages, you kind of have to do the first 4 yourself, because you can't afford to hire anybody to do the work for you, right?
Yeah.
But what he failed to realize and failed to mention, I think, to people was how do you choose? Like, how do you choose what to do in the freaking giant world of social media platforms? Do I do TikTok? Do I do Facebook? Do I do Instagram? Now, most people are going to say you need to be on all of them, omni-channel. But if you're in the beginning stages, you can't do all of them. It's physically impossible. So you either have to pick one based on 2 things, either time or money, right? So if you have money to advertise, obviously you want to do pay-per-click or paid ads or some type of paid media, Google ads, etc. But beginning stages, you don't have that. So then it's time. You have the time to spend on outreach, which is your warm outreach, or the people that you know that are closest to you, people in your phone, people on your mailing list, or any list that you might have. Just hit them and provide value to them and say, hey, do you know anybody that you like that might be interested in my service? Right. And that's a really good, like, kind of intro, even if you haven't talked to the person in a long time. But I think the differentiator here is like, is it the time or the money to help me pick and choose which digital media platform or digital marketing channel I need to start with? That's the missing piece, right? And so that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, honestly. And, you know, a lot of my sales calls are just like helping people strategize and figure out like what's the best for you given your current situation. And then if my team has the option or the done for you package or service to help you with that, cool, we'll help you with that. Or we can be a consultant for you as well and help you figure that out. Or you can use our amazing resources and software that we have as well, like Rat GPT, which is an AI tool, or Rat SEO, which allows you to pull your SEO data from your website. So at the end of the day, it's like, do you have the time or the money? If, you know, cold outreach is people don't know who you are. They're basically, you know, random ass people that you're reaching out to. That's harder because they don't know who you are yet. They don't know, like, build trust with you yet because you're just some random stranger that's sending them an email, right? Those are harder, but you could still get through to people if you do it over time and you have multiple touch points. And then content, right? Content is kind of what we're doing right now. If you have the time and you know, are a creator, like I had mentioned earlier, like don't be a consumer, be a creator, because creators are the people that get their message out there, regardless of what it is, whether you're selling a product, a service, or just entertainment, right? Which is what a lot of virality is nowadays, is just people doing pranks and crazy things on TikTok and whatnot that really hits like an emotional, you know, trigger for us, which glad to talk a little bit more deeper on that another time. But the idea is, you know, you have to figure out which is the best approach for you. It's overwhelming, all the marketing channels that are out there. So what do people start with? And that's what I help people do essentially at the end of the day.
I love that. I'm definitely having you back on, Rich, because there's like at least 1,000 things we can talk about. And that's what I love about having like these amazing guests like yourself on, because you drop amazing knowledge. It gives those nice little open loops, as I like to say, for people to come back to check out your content and see what else you have. So obviously you're an expert in doing that. So again, with Alex Hormozi, giving those open loops, you know. What was
one last note on that? Sorry.
Yes, please.
So what he did was he actually changed the traditional, like, Tony Robbins style, you know, build up to sell a service or sell a product. And he just like completely flipped it upside down. It was a major book launch for him. Right. And it was only a $30 book, but he was like, you're going to get this package and you're going to get this package. You're going to get this package. You're going to get this. And I'm like, he's going to sell us something big, right? It's going to be like a big package, you know, 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever it is for the package. And he's like, just kidding. It's all free. Go to my website. And so a couple of things come to mind with that. The first thing is like, cool. He's got $100 million business. He can do that, right? Not everybody has $100 million business. So although his approach was really interesting and fun and unique, right? Different than what most companies do and what most people do. I think there's still a need for people to really sell their service and tell people like, hey, I provide real value to you. So please pay me for my service, right? Yeah. If you give everything away for free, you don't have a profitable business.
Very,
right?
very true.
And
very true.
But there is a key point around content that you do have to provide valuable content to nurture your audience and really provide value, right? Now, you're going to get people that, you know, just consume your content for free and never buy from you. That's cool, because I'm still providing value to other people. And I forget the quote, what Jim Rohn says, but he says something about like, no, I'm sorry, Zig Ziglar says something around like, I want to help. If I help enough other people get what they want, then I'll get what I want. And I just totally butchered the saying there, but something along those lines. If I help enough people get what they want, then I'll get what I want. So it's a giving
so
mentality.
True. Yeah, it's the more you give, the more you'll receive. The world is a generous place. So when you can, sorry, someone just walked by the window. I was just like, wait, what was that? I apologize. Like the more you give, the more you receive. Like you coming on this podcast, you sharing it, eventually someone in your audience may hear it, or from your audience will hear it and be like, oh, I want to start a podcast. I'm going to talk to Phil because he had a great rapport with Rich. Or, you know, someone's going to listen to this from my end and they're going to be like, oh, Rich knows his stuff. I want to go work with him because he gave away already so much free information. Jesus, I don't know where to go from here. because we are running out of time, but I want to ask you more and more questions.
I could talk forever, man. We gotta have a whole show together, you know. Like
Yeah, we're gonna do another episode for sure, Rich. One final question before I get to my end all question. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
$100 million ad agency.
Nice.
Yeah. You see how quickly I was to that?
That I know you're like, I'm going to do that in 5 years. Fuck 10 years. You know?
And the reason is it's not like it's about the money, but it's also about the people, right?
Mhm.
Like I feel like I could do, and I'm not going to get too personal here, but you know, growing up, my mother was addicted to alcohol, right? And so I figure if I can grow something really big, then I can help make a positive impact on people that have addiction to whatever it is, drugs, alcohol, etc. And so that's why I'm thinking so big, because if I can provide jobs for people, and you know, and really it's three core values that we have, and it's make money, have fun, and do good. And that's it, right? And who doesn't want that? Right? Like at the end of the day, it's like, what else do you need? Now obviously there's relationships and experiences and memories that we build over time that are important, that never leave us. But you know, from a business perspective, those are kind of like our core values. I think you wanted to ask me something about being a kid. Like what was
that's the final question. I wanted you to see where you were going in 10 years, what we're going.
Yeah.
I love that you're 100 million. Pull in the Alex Hormozy. You're gonna do a Alex Hormozy for the digital world. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Giving away everything, and then people coming in, you just start acquiring companies like he does, which is again genius. I could do a whole episode on it, but here we are. We're coming to the end of the episode. I snap my fingers. I have 10-year-old Rich here. He's rambunctious. He's been ruining my room. What piece of advice can you give him so I can send him back?
Yeah, I think so. At 10 years old, it's hard because you know it's a pretty impressionable age, and I don't really remember what I was doing at 10. But the thing that popped in my head when you said this was sales. If I could teach my 10-year-old self to learn sales earlier, and to learn how to sell without being sleazy, and just being a good person and helping, like with a genuine curiosity of people and building relationships with people rather than just trying to sell, then I think that would have been great, right? Because I didn't really, you know, learn and understand the importance of sales and how it's basically the lifeblood of any business, right? Without sales, you can't operate, and you can't, you know, do any work for anybody. And so I would say, like, over the past decade, I've kind of been obsessed with just being a better person in general, but then also like fine tuning my sales processes, fine tuning the sales team, fine tuning what it means to develop a business, and you know, and supported by marketing, right? Because in the beginning stages, I was really, really, really good at marketing, and still am, and from a digital perspective. But if you get people to come to you, you know, that's more of like a one-on-one. Like the way I think about marketing is like one to many, like it's like a bigger, broader audience, one to many. So advertising, creating content, right? Stuff like that, outreach at a bulk scale. But sales is about a one-on-one relationship, and, you know, not just selling somebody something, but selling somebody something that can actually help them based on their goals, right? So if somebody's like, hey, I need to increase the traffic on my website, cool, come to Red Rat Media. Or hey, if I don't understand SEO and we need a consultant to help us with that, cool, come to Red Rat Media. Or we need just somebody to do it for us because we don't give a shit about it. We just want it to be done, and then have somebody do it for us based on a package. So that's the idea, is, you know, learning, you know, what you want, what you like, and what you believe in to actually sell, that actually helps people, in my case, in the wealth pillar, right? In terms of building your business and building your brand and building that type of thing. But overall, like, I think of life as like my core values are health, wealth, and happiness. And so if I'm not healthy, taking care of myself, going, you know, out running and lifting weights and being, you know, and drinking water, you notice I'm drinking a lot of water, right? Then that affects my relationships, and that affects my ability to actually help people. So it's kind of all tied together. But yeah, I would just say, like, hey, 10-year-old Rich, learn sales earlier, right? Even if it was like 16 or 15 years old or whatever in high school, because I was super shy. Like I said to you earlier, I was like really nerdy and computer geeky and video games. And now I'm like a super extrovert, apparently. I don't know how that happened, but it just happens over time. The more you learn about yourself and the more you kind of go on this self-development journey, so to speak.
I love it. I love it. Great advice too. I sent Rich back. He was getting into my PlayStation. I was a little worried he'd delete all my games, so I sent him back. But no, I love that piece of advice, Rich, and it's wonderful. And with that, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you. Whatever you feel like pitching, selling, telling them about. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so the main thing is that, so there are two things. I just released a book that I wrote back in 2012, and it's completely free, right? It's sort of the Hormozy effect, right? I wrote a book that took me a very long time, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to give it out for free. So to get to that, you're going to go to redratmedia.com/blog, and you'll see it on there. It's a digital marketing guide, like ultimate guide that I'm regularly updating, and it gives you guidance on, how to actually, like, what is digital marketing to you? What's the simplified, basic version of it? So that's number one. And number two is check out my podcast at therichlifepodcast.com. And that's more of like a holistic overview of my core values of health, wealth, and happiness. My business, Red Rat Media, happens to fall into the wealth aspect of that, of that part of my life. And then actually I'll add one more. Check me out on Instagram at Rich Tavetian, if you can remember how to spell my last name. But yeah, check me out on Instagram as well. And you basically find me on any social media platform.
Awesome. Rich, thank you so much for coming on. I had a great time talking with you. I'm looking forward to having you back on so we can talk even more in depth on stuff and give my audience even better lessons in the future.
Thank you so much, Phil, for having me on, and hope to see you on the Rich Life podcast.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be on the Rich Life podcast for sure. As just to share what I know, even if it's a fraction of what you know. But to my audience, to help you out, so because I know Rich Tavetian is a hard name to figure out. I'm having a hard time pronouncing it. I'll put his links down in the show notes down below, especially the link to the media guide so that you guys can just click there and get it right away. I thank you very much for listening. Thank Rich for coming on and sharing. Make sure to always remember to invest in yourself.